afternoon, everyone. Good morning, I guess, or afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. My name is George Ross. I'm the CEO of the Digital Research Alliance of Canada, and I want to thank you all for being here today. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement, if I may. I'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis lands on which we all work and live. My colleagues and I are joining you from the Alliance headquarters in Ottawa today. Our office sits on the traditional unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. As Canada's national digital research infrastructure organization, we also affirm our respect for the data sovereignty, knowledge systems, and research priorities of our nations and communities, and our commitment to advancing reconciliation together through our work. So today we're really wanting to close the loop with everybody, and I want to pass on my appreciation to many of you for your involvement with us over the last several weeks as we've developed our response to the federal government's statement of interest for AI compute, sovereign AI compute in the country. It's been a very important project for this organization, and we could not have really developed and delivered our response on behalf of the community without all of your input. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Wu to lead us here. I do believe there's translation for everybody here, Stephen, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we should be able to conduct this, and for any people that aren't listening, English is a first language, they should be able to follow along. Stephen, over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, George. And it's a pleasure to be with everyone today for our town hall discussing the post-submission of what the Alliance has put in. As George mentioned, this is a bilingual town hall. We do have live translation, so you are free to select that in your Zoom function as well. We also will be recording this town hall and making it public afterwards. So if you do not wish to be seen recorded your face, please feel free to turn off your camera as well. So again, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us, especially on short notice, to kind of go over the Canadian Sovereign AI Infrastructure Program Statement of Intent that the Alliance has submitted officially to the Government of Canada as of last week. And what we wanted to do was really to close the loop on kind of what the final submission looked like and give you a bit of a sense of where our vision is and where it landed after the submission. So without further ado, what I wanted to do today is just kind of run you through a quick slide deck from beginning to end about what we have submitted, and then open it up for questions from the community. Very much so. This is not the end of a process. This is actually the beginning of a process. So this will not be the last time you will be hearing from us. And probably we will have a number of more engagements virtually and in person as well. So in anticipation of that, thank you for your participation. So first and foremost, just to kind of orient everyone back together, this is a $705 million opportunity that came about on February 27th. For public compute, specifically for AI. And so as the National Organization for Digital Research Infrastructure, we are very pleased to bring together the community to kind of understand your needs and what your requirements are, and also articulate a national vision for how we need to kind of structure this investment to make an impact, not only for the research community here in Canada, but for industry and also for the betterment of all Canadians. So this is kind of our final touch point in the first phase of this engagement. So just a little bit of context, because I think through this entire engagement process that we've run, people kind of didn't realize that there was actually a larger commitment to Canada's AI Advantage Strategy, which was actually worth $2.4 billion. And this $705 million was a part of that commitment in the last federal budget. The Alliance was actually awarded $85 million already for short-term deployment for public compute needs. And that will be a project that we will probably give an update to the community on afterwards as well, because that is already committed to the Alliance and we are looking to deploy those fundings. But for the purpose of today, we're going to focus on the $705 million and kind of starting off with this presentation in three key parts. First part of the presentation, which I'll go through, will be about what we've heard from yourselves, the community, what we've heard from other SOI proponents. And the second part of the presentation will go over what we have submitted into the Government of Canada. And the final piece is some of the work that we've actually done to advise and support government decision-making through this process. And we will share this with you as well. So a lot of you kind of remember that who were here with us last time, actually in March, we had talked about kind of rushing to the finish line and actually submitting something on April 14th. And it's always a pros and cons when you hear that the Government of Canada has given you, the community, an extension. Pros is you get more time to write. The con is you need to kind of do that extra work and actually spend that extra time to actually make sure that we've refined it so that we actually meet the expectations. So we didn't take that extra time lightly. Our team actually took the extra time, refined our vision, provided a lot more context, and also took the time to talk to a lot more of the community stakeholders across the country as well. So starting things off, what did we hear across the country during our engagement process? Over the past 2 months, we've actually done 4 virtual town halls and over 20 executive briefings with academic, industry, and government leaders across the country. And we've touched over 750 people. And these are people who've actually joined us and also people who have actually provided us with feedback in person and virtually as well. We've also talked to most, if not all, of the major public and private proponents that are submitting SOIs into this process as well. And the reason why we wanted to do that is two-pronged. One is because the Alliance's proposal is not competitive with any other submission. And we also wanted to ensure that we were providing the right context for what the country needs and ensure that we can actually coordinate these SOI submissions so that the Government of Canada can understand that when we as the public DRI community, the public research community, and also industry, we are speaking as one voice and one need. The second part of this is also the fact that we've also kept ISED informed throughout this process about what we have heard and what we are planning to do. And so we've actually had in-person briefings with ISED leadership in Canada. I'm actually in Ottawa right now. And we've also done a number of briefings with ISED abroad as well, especially at the Hannover Messe last month in Germany. So we've took these opportunities to kind of brief them so that there is no surprises. Now, this is something that, again, we want to thank you because you were an integral part of this process. And we actually had a virtual call for input and expressions of interest. And we actually received 125 submissions. And through these submissions, we had a number of amazing ideas. And we also had offers for financial and in-kind contributions, including expertise, land, cash, equipment. So thank you for that. And we will be touching base with all of you in the near future. The second thing is we also heard from the community is very willing to coordinate and collaborate. And that's something that I think is a very Canadian thing. And I think this is something that shows the type of collaboration that can happen to really elevate the research dynamic in the country. We also heard that there's a strong desire not to fragment the investment and the fact that this needs to be a national consolidated investment as a whole. Now, one thing that we also recognize is the fact that even though the Alliance has served and continues to primarily serve the research community in Canada, the Government of Canada also has economic impact and industrial considerations as well. And so we are very mindful of that and also wanted to structure a submission that accounts for these benefits while also ensuring that our research needs are protected and ensured into the future as well. So through our engagement, we have seen about 5 major SOI efforts. And I know that there are more than 5, especially from a lot of institutions or whatnot. But the way that we've defined major is actually consortium-based approaches or approaches that have actually multiple institutions or organizations coming together. We've also seen a number of research institutes, particularly dealing with health, advocating for specialized resources in compute and data management in particular. And what we've also seen is most entities that are going after the private sector AI Compute Challenge, which is another funding envelope that was announced as part of Budget 2024, have also gone into submitting into this AI Compute Infrastructure Program. And that's something that we are very aware of as well. So what we've seen through the national submissions as a whole is, again, I mentioned national scale-up consolidated investment is something that is acknowledged and needs. There's been acknowledgement that the Digital Research Alliance provides national services that cannot be replicated and needs to continue serving the research community. And what we've also seen is a lot of the other pitches are very site-specific. But the reality is because through this process, the government of Canada has not actually indicated any requirements for the scale, size, and scope of the AI compute. We also understand that not all submissions have prerequisite requirements potentially relating to power, the zoning, and also potentially land ownership as well. And those things need to be considered by ISED at the end of the day. We've also identified 4 core business models that have been identified through this process. We'll get into a little bit of that in a little bit. But we've also seen most universities proposing a build and own option, either at the institution or adjacent to a post-secondary. But we've also seen private sector primarily pitching for co-location or compute as a service model or some variation of these structures. So the other piece of this is the fact that we've also taken a very global approach to this SOI, because this isn't something that positions Canadian researchers for success. It is also about positioning Canada to be globally competitive. And so when we kind of take a look at international dynamics, we are seeing increasingly other jurisdictions around the world, especially in Europe, in Asia, taking a national approach to AI infrastructure. And what we mean by this is it is one major investment that's consolidated and at scale. We've also seen the fact that because these are becoming national investments, AI infrastructure is also being leveraged for public good, for industry development, for economic development, supporting supply chain resiliency, where they're using this as an opportunity to procure or support a domestic manufacturing or production of critical chips or other types of data center technology, and also taking a look at public benefits as a whole to jurisdiction, including dual use, emergency management, and others. A lot of this infrastructure also is being done at scale to ensure that they are able to collaborate with other jurisdictions eye to eye. And so global partnerships and collaboration is also equally important. Across Canada, we've seen the impact of fragmented infrastructure investment. It's not the fact that we can't have distributed compute. It's the fact that we need to ensure that we're pooling resources and making sure that it's done in a scalable way and does the maximum impact for Canadian researchers. We also note that there is no national data infrastructure currently, and that has a lot of impact on the future of AI research and training, and that needs to also be something that is addressed. And we're also seeing the fact that because Canada currently does not have the compute capacity that it should have, it's also driving researchers to foreign-owned system, which is something that we need to also address as part of this SOI, which is about sovereignty and digital sovereignty. From a research community, we've heard that there is a consistent need for compute at scale, a need for training, services, and support, not just for researchers, but postgraduates and graduate students, and the fact that the systems need to be interoperable. And there also needs to be consistent services, policies, and ways to implement these. And because Canada is known to be a leader in a variety of research disciplines, flexibility of user needs is also critical. Now, there's another thing that we need to kind of account for, and this is something that we've seen increasingly in the world, is the fact that, as Canada looks to other jurisdictions to seek stable trading partnerships, Canada and the European Union have a lot of commonalities, especially in how we've structured compute, AI infrastructure, and DRI in general. And we need to kind of really understand how do we develop collaborative systems and ensure that Canada is coming to the table in the right way. And what I mean by that is right now, when you kind of take a look across Europe, the HPC joint undertaking, which is their continental initiative to fund and support compute infrastructure, they have actually deployed funding for 13 AI factories across the continent. And Euro HPC and the European Commission have actually launched a number of programs such as the AI Continent Strategy and the AI Factory Antenna program to attract companies and researchers to use their system. While this is great for collaboration, we also need to understand the implications on Canadian sovereignty, intellectual property, and what is ultimately in the national interest for our industrial strategy as well. And there's a number of geopolitical factors as we kind of enter an age of instability globally. So where is Canada going to invest to ensure that we are playing on a level playing field with the rest of the world? And that is a strong consideration as part of the Alliance's SOI. So as I said, we didn't take the extra time that we had on the SOI lightly. We've actually taken a look at most of the feedback that we've received. And we wanted to demonstrate that the Alliance is the leader in DRI across the country. And we wanted to make sure that we set clear expectations for everyone, that this isn't just about hardware. This is also about public benefit and meeting researcher requirements and what is in the best interest of the country. Digital sovereignty is also very, very complex as an issue. There's issues dealing with technology, there's issues dealing with scalability, there's issues with legality, and a number of other features, and it's complex. And that is a discussion that we have recommended and we provided a definition to as part of our SOI for the submission. Through the various SOIs with other proponents, we've also proposed coordinated messaging, which is also a way for us to kind of ensure that the Government of Canada is hearing from multiple sources about your needs as a community and how we as a community can work together to support this. And the reality is when we take a look at sovereign AI compute, it's not just about compute access. There's other opportunities that need to be explored and can be explored to provide new opportunities for industry, research, and innovation as well. And we'll get into that. But finally, as you saw earlier in the earlier slides, there's a lot of different proposals that have gone into government for consideration. And what we've also done is we've developed a standardized evaluation framework. And this is something that we've submitted to ISED for their consideration as they move forward in their assessment criteria. And it is really to assess and assist them in their decision-making as well. So let's move into the actual SOI and what we've actually provided to the Government of Canada. So first and foremost, we actually have a vision for public, sovereign, and secure AI compute infrastructure. So I wanted to kind of emphasize that this is for public, sovereign AI compute, okay? So we understand that the private sector and others have other models for providing cloud and computing and other resources, but we're talking purely about public. And what our position is that we want to position Canada as a global leader in AI that supports and protects Canadian researchers through scientific and industrial breakthroughs. That is our broad vision for the purpose of this SOI. We are a principle-based organization, and there's a number of key considerations that we must address through this SOI process. First and foremost is the fact that Canada has consistently lagged behind other G7 countries in terms of DRI investments. And this has huge implications on the competitiveness and productivity of the country. Secondly, it's a fact that when we take a look at digital research infrastructure and AI compute, we can't just be taking a look at one or two different areas. We need to take a look at the needs of all academia, government research, and industrial research needs as well, and how we support all of them. A lot of times we talk about high performance computing, GPU, CPU is the latest and greatest hardware, but it's a lot more than hardware, and it's a lot more than AI. It's also about the wraparound services and the talent as well. We've talked a lot about the fact that right now there's over 26,000 users of Alliance services and infrastructure. But the reality is the current funding model that the Alliance has through a contribution agreement with the Government of Canada cannot adequately support the future needs of researchers, especially as there's increased need for more compute geared towards AI research. And what that means is we need to consolidate and scale up this compute. Equitable national resources and access is something that we believe in purely and fundamentally as an alliance, no matter where you are in the country, no matter which institution you work for. Equal access is something that is core to our work. and it needs to be sustainable, and it needs to be collaborative. That is something that we fundamentally built our SOI around. We've also defined sovereignty, and this is something that we've talked about in the past, but it's really about ensuring Canada has the ability to maintain full control of AI infrastructure, data, and technological capabilities through legal frameworks, through reduction of reliance on foreign entities, but also about developing Canadian talent, not just developing talent, but retaining talent to ensure that there's meaningful jobs here that can support careers throughout their lifespan. But we also need to ensure that innovation and prioritizing made in Canada solutions is also important. And that's something that is core to our SOI as well. The other thing that we need to define here is also the fact that the government of Canada intends to make a generational investment. This is truly a generational investment with $705 million. And we also wanted to ensure that we took a look at what nationally significant meant. And so when we kind of took a look at this analysis, if the government of Canada considers the initial $375 million that was initially used to found the alliance and the initial investment, plus the recent compute infrastructure refresh across the country, including the Pan AI infrastructure that was invested in, the $85 million in short-term immediate compute infrastructure, and you tack on Project $700 million, which we kind of adherently call here at the Alliance, which is the AI Sovereign Compute Program, we can actually rank number 2 if the investment was made today in 2025 within the G7. And so we understand that despite the fact that we can be ranked number 2 as of today, at the point of time, the reality is the government of Canada will take time to evaluate and plan for how to deploy this investment. So the Alliance has made a commitment here to the government of Canada and to the community. And it's the fact that the Alliance will always make investment decisions and recommendations that will ensure that Canada will position within the top 25th percentile of the G7, or always ranked number 2 within the community. And we also make a commitment that this needs to be in addition to the existing national compute capacity from the host sites and the PACE site systems as a whole. This needs to be holistically looked at, not just the 705 from this funding envelope. But this is all great. Hardware, ranking, that serves a purpose, but the magic is really in the value-added services and the data, and we can't lose sight of that, despite the ranking system that is in place. So our proposed methodology is 5-pronged. First and foremost, it's AI compute and Canada's first AI factory. There's a national data platform and unified AI foundational infrastructure. There is an AI infrastructure testbed and integrated marketplace, workforce development, and economic security considerations. And we'll go into each one of these one by one. So first and foremost, I think AI compute and the hardware is very easy to understand. There needs to be an AI compute facility that actually has accelerated high GPU ratioed compute environment. But more than that, when you take a look at a lot of the AI factories that are being deployed in Europe, especially, the services are what makes them true AI factories. And in Canada, what we are proposing is, in addition to the compute capacity of the hardware, what we also need are a number of new service stacks, including the national data platform, the distributed storage, a research software platform, the test bed, workforce training, user support. And that's in addition to the existing services that the Alliance provides, as well as the research and education network that Canary provides as well. And what we're saying here is the fact that once we are able to deploy all of these services in addition to the AI compute capacity, essentially all of the existing host sites and PACE sites across the country will also retroactively become AI factories in their own right as well. So we will also, like the European Union, have a network of AI factories to serve Canadians. Data is also critically important, and it's not just about STEM or science-based research. Humanities and social sciences are critical to this as well. And we've heard this loud and clear from the community. And we've actually been asked by the research community to develop national data spaces. And what we want to do here is to ensure that we provide an interoperable and cybersecure framework to address this particular challenge. And this is something that we need to get started on in order to allow for researchers and folks to do large language model training and other types of AI research. It's fundamentally in the data, and we need to desperately get this up and running. This is pure infrastructure. We also need to take a look at talent. Fundamentally, the Alliance already provides a number of tools, platforms, and portals with training materials that are already being used across the country in partnership with the regional organization and institutions that allow for people to get access to training material, curriculum across the country. But we can't do this together, alone. We need to do this together. And what we mean by this, first and foremost, is we need to understand the type of talent the country needs in terms of AI. And it's not just about high-end software engineers or people doing large language models. We need to look everything from those talents to everything downstream from that to infrastructure and everything in between. And a pure labor market study needs to be conducted. But beyond that, there's a number of other pillars that need to be addressed, such as upskilling researchers, providing them the right tools to use the infrastructure that is being deployed, and also the graduate students and also research assistants. They all need to be upskilled. We also need to work with our national DRI workforce. We have a 200 person strong workforce, which we thank them for every single day for servicing the research community. And we need to also provide them with the tools that they need to be able to service the infrastructure of the future. But beyond that, we also need to kind of think about innovative ways to get people trained up fast to kind of accommodate the needs of today. And what we mean by that is we need to kind of work with partners such as the Digital Supercluster and other industry associations to provide work integrated learning, and also take a look at how we can attract and retain talent in Canada. This is a holistic strategy that the Alliance wants to do with partnerships across the country. Now, I want to get into a little bit of the test bed. And the reason why this is quite important is the fact that, a lot of times people kind of think about this as a purely compute access play. And the reality is that this goes beyond compute access. What we want to do here is to ensure that we preserve the AI compute access for the folks who absolutely need it to grow innovation, to grow research, and do all of that. But we also understand that AI compute infrastructure also has another dynamic to that. And a lot of those dynamics deal with hardware. When we did a survey of folks through our call for input, what we actually saw was the fact that there was a significant demand for technology adoption and technology testing and incubation. And what we mean by that is as you build out this compute infrastructure, there are a lot of other peripheral technologies related to data center that can be Canadian made that should be consumed in Canada. And what we look at include cooling systems. We need to take a look at next generation computing like quantum computing, neuromorphic computing, parallel memory, and other types of technologies. How do we support innovation across the country and provide a safe and scalable way for these technologies to be tested? And we're not just talking about one particular facility, such as the National AI Factory that is being proposed, but how do we work with the existing host sites and the PACE sites to also be testing test beds in their own right, using a national intake strategy? And the reason why we want to do this is also so that Canada can play in global supply chains and interoperate with these stable trading partners as well. When we take a look at supporting, economic security and resiliency and supporting innovation across the country, one of the key metrics that the Government of Canada uses is the technology readiness level scale. And what we wanted to also use a scale for is to kind of really understand from an industry perspective, how can we leverage the compute investment that the Government of Canada is going to provide to support industry as well, while ensuring that the maximum amount of compute resources are reserved for researchers across the country. And what we've done here is to kind of say that if you are a lower level technology readiness organization or technology, those are usually AI startups that are just training large language models, tinkering around, doing some research, probably working with a lot of universities as a whole. We want to ensure that they have access to compute capacity. If you are a company like a drug discovery organization, an engineering firm that's doing modeling for infrastructure or whatnot, and you already have a technology in place, but you just want to tinker around with AI to kind of figure out how it will improve your process or your product, we want to also provide these kind of services for you as well, because that is a form of research. But between TRLs 4 to 6 and 7 to 9, as I mentioned, we can also take a look at hardware. how do the physical data centers that can be deployed and also the existing host sites support early and commercial-ready technology testing in all the systems, including quantum, cooling, and all the other things that we talked about. And if these technologies that are going to be required at the different host sites, the PACE sites, and also this AI factory are commercially viable, the Alliance can potentially be the first customer using the core funding that has already been entrusted with us through our contribution agreement with the Government of Canada. This is a all of society, all of economy type approach, but also preserving resource compute access, resources for the appropriate researchers and industry at the right level. Now, making this decision is not easy. And when you kind of take a look at the financials, this is something that we worked with a lot of the other proponents to kind of understand, is that there are triple constraints: time, cost, and the scale of compute. Time in the means that, how fast does the Government of Canada want to deploy the funding, or do they want to take a little bit more time? At what scale do they want to invest in? And what are the different models that they are willing to do? And what are the considerations for the public good and public benefit? And these things need to be taken a look at. So when we took a look at the dynamics of public benefit and public good, obviously science, research, and innovation is core to why we're doing this, but it's also about economic competitiveness. It's also about public health and how we kind of prepare for emergency responses. How do we ensure that if there are researchers doing wildlife response type researches that support immediate action, supporting Government of Canada or other levels of government to respond to these disasters, how can we free up resources to support these? Defense, post-quantum encryption, dual-use research. These are important topics. Arctic sovereignty. We've seen a need for Arctic DRI as well. But we've also been approached internationally as well for international data backup. And so how do these dynamics play into the investment that the Government of Canada is looking into? And so one of the things that we wanted to do is take a look at how this AI compute and data investment can benefit and achieve a lot of these different objectives as a whole for all of Canada, not just for one or two different areas. So when we kind of take a look at the triple constraint model, we also understood the fact that there are actually a number of different options across the country. But when you kind of take a look at all of these options, it boils down to four key options. Build and own. Universities have traditionally pitched that. There's also built to suit, where you amortize the cost of the new facility and whatnot through lease payments. And you also have co-location and compute as a service. Each one of these have different financial models and different ways of taking a look at this. And what we've done is we've actually worked with a number of private sector third-party consultants to actually help us develop a model for evaluation of the different opportunities from a financial basis so that we can understand how the different options compare apple to apples. And this isn't a consideration that we will evaluate. It's a tool for ISET to help them in understanding how they want to take a look at all the different SOI opportunities. As we mentioned previously, the Alliance actually doesn't have a preferred option or a business model in mind, but the reality is the fact that it needs to serve the national interest. And there are a number of different models already in place that Canada needs to invest into developing so that it's interoperable and so that we can collaborate with other foreign jurisdictions. NCI Australia, it's a not-for-profit at a university land. Finland CSC has a not-for-profit that's owned and operated by a not-for-profit. And in the US, it's government owned and operated. What model serves the best, that meets the needs of Canadian researchers that are based on global best practices and delivers the best value to the taxpayer? Because this is taxpayer dollars that we're talking about as well. So in the Alliance, we've actually provided 3 financial scenarios to the Government of Canada for their consideration. In scenario 1, what we have here is articulating the fact, well, actually, let me kind of start back. The fact of the matter is, in our analysis, the funding envelope is insufficient to achieve everything that the community actually needs. And one of the things that we've actually articulated is the need for an expansion of the funding envelope to kind of get us to where we need as a country. But we also understand that we need to meet the federal policy objectives, which are not just about increased compute capacity. As we mentioned, it's also economic development as well. We also wanted to make sure that we are articulating them. It's not just about hardware. You cannot get anywhere with just a bunch of computers. You also need the value-added services, the talent, and the people that operate these things. And so in doing so, we've actually created 3 funding scenarios for them to consideration. In scenario 1, what we've said here is this is the model that we are actually saying will gear us for the most programs and services, the talent and value-added services that support the community. This is something that we say is the thing that actually will drive us forward in the most optimal scenario. But what that also means is it's the option that actually provides the least amount of compute infrastructure that actually makes a nationally significant impact on the country. In scenario 3, what we've taken a look at here is based on our assessment and our third-party understanding. This is the probably a realistic costing for both the development of a new build facility plus AI infrastructure. So all the hard costs associated with it, with the minimum amount of investment we would require to deliver on programs and services for the country. And I want to stress here, in some of these models, we understand that universities and other public entities will be providing in-kind contributions to offset some of these costs. But what we wanted to articulate to the government of Canada is at the full cost scenario, this is kind of what you look for, and then account for all of the different options and contributions from institutions and others as discounts to this scenario as well. So this is kind of how we took a look at this. So our ultimate recommendation to the government of Canada is that this needs to be a comprehensive consolidated investment in AI compute. The infrastructure and the wraparound services must be managed by a national public entity. And we've also developed an evaluation framework to support the evaluation of the different SOIs. And we want ISET to consider it because it is really about defining public benefit and other considerations as well. So with that, this is, as I mentioned, just the beginning of a journey. We fully expect ISET to be running a review panel with experts over the summer. Successful SOI proponents, which they're interested in, will be required to provide a proposal. And throughout this process, we also will be touching base with yourselves and leading a number of other very specialized consultations so that we can receive your feedback and integrate it and pre-plan for phase 2 in the anticipation that the Alliance has the opportunity to be trusted by yourselves and the Government of Canada to deliver on this funding envelope. So with that, thank you so much. And we will now open it up for some questions. Thank you. I'll have Katerina maybe help us with some of the moderation here. And I know that there's 17 comments already.
Yes, I am here. So we have received the first question regarding the recording of the town hall. So yes, it will be available soon after this town hall, and we'll make sure that it's available in both French and in English. We will be sending out the link and making sure that everyone knows where to go get it. Next question was, did the Alliance work on Queen's University proposal or worked with them on a proposal? So I don't know who would like to take this question.
Maybe George, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I can feel this one. Well, we've had a number of discussions with Queen's about their proposal, their vision. I wouldn't say we work with them specifically in any different way than we worked with any of the rest of the community on our submission here, but we certainly have an open dialogue with Queen's. What they're proposing, our understanding is a very sophisticated type of installation for certain purposes, and it certainly is certainly a well thought out proposal, and we're open to continuing discussions with them. So
okay, we have a question from Michael who put his hand up, so I'll just take that question before I go back to the chat.
If you want to go through the chat first, because they were there before, that's fine. Whatever.
Oh, good. Let's do it, Michael, please.
Okay. So thanks, Stephen. I thought it was a great presentation, and I really learned a lot about the DRAC vision. One question is, you touched on the importance of data, right? So obviously this infrastructure is fantastic, but you need data in it in order to make use of it. And I'm curious whether you envision that when the actual proposal submission stage, or the proposal development stage comes down the road, whether you anticipate DRAC working more closely with data custodians in a variety of areas. I mean, obviously, I'm from the health area, and health is a particularly challenging data to work with, as you know. But whether you would anticipate working with custodians like us and others, of course, on the further development of your vision, because it seems to me that is something that's going to be critical for the success, is to rethink through the data governance, and even when you're talking about opportunities for technology development and innovation, that includes data governance and how data is accessed and how sensitive data is masked and rendered de-identified for research and other uses and so on. So anyway, just a question about how you see that sort of engagement working with our community as you develop your full proposal.
George, do you want to start, or do you want me
Yeah,
to?
I'll start it. I don't know if Felipe's on the line here as well, but maybe he can tag team. So, Michael, this is an excellent point, right? I mean, I think while we're focused on responding to this SOI for several months now, better part of a year, we've been really at the same level focused on what the national data environment needs from an organization like the Alliance. And we've developed this concept of a national data platform, which, I think in our view is as critical as the compute, the compute investment here. And the concept we have there is really to work from some core standards and to provide some basic infrastructure, but really to work with the disciplines and the communities of interest here, who will ultimately be the stewards of the data, and to develop data spaces, in full collaboration. As a matter of fact, our role will probably be a supporting role as opposed to a leading role in many of these cases. So that is certainly the idea here. It's big, hairy, complex, and we're thinking about trying to bite some things off in a practical way with community leadership, one space at a time. So we've got some advanced discussions going on with the genomics folks right now, because there is data being generated out of some genomics projects, national projects, etc. So to answer your question more succinctly, we're going to have to work with the community here, because we are infrastructure providers and supporters here. The community really has to see the value in this and participate. And when I talk about the community, this is this needs to be more than just the academic research community as well, because there's troves of data and government research repositories, et cetera, need to be pulled together.
Back to you, Katerina.
Thank you. We do have a couple comments towards slide 16 of the presentation coming from Mark and I believe Maxime, who were looking at the color coding on slide 16 and saying that the solution already maybe exists, and we have a national user support already, for example, that is stated and not existing. So I don't know if there is any comments that we would like to comment back on this one.
Great. Maybe I'll turn it over to David, not to put him on the spot, and I think it's related to the service stack for the AI factory. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, what we've done in the slide that we saw presented there is an evaluation of the maturity of these services at a national perspective. I think there's an opportunity for some healthy discussion around how we're evaluating the maturity of these national services. There's a distinction between federated and truly national. So I think that's something that is a ripe field for further discussion.
I want to jump in here and just back up a level here too on all of this. So one of the unique things about Canada with the model we have right now is we actually have a national access model, right? We have identifiers, we have we have national services and user support and those sorts of things. So the concept in all of this is to build on what we've got now, as opposed to this is certainly it would be ridiculous for us to think about replacing that or sort of repositioning that. There's been years, maybe decades of work in building some of this collaboration, cooperation, and the models, the actual processes we use. So, this is really sort of a starting point for us in all of this. A lot of details in that, as David says, working through how this all gets operationalized. But nobody should be under the illusion here that this is a new concept or building something new. Rather than sort of working from the considerable achievements we've made in the country over the last several years.
Thank you.
Applies to things like training, software availability, all those sorts of things, and frankly, the expertise that sit in all the host sites and the institutions. We need to lever all of that as we build this for the country.
Mhm. Right.
Thank you, George. I'll get back then to the floor, and we have a hand up from Barbara Spooner. If you'd like to take your question.
Barbara's not in the camera, though. I see a picture, but I don't see her there. Barbara, you there?
That's the other Barbara. I'm Barbara Morcullen. I'm in the comments, but yeah, I'm not her.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. She's muted. So I
Yeah, I can try to unmute her here, maybe.
But Barbara M., do you want to go or?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh.
So I came to Canada from Europe and I did first principles calculation here, and I am primary users of state-of-the-art software, and I always ask for upgrades. But the problem is that the now support doesn't work because you cannot specify to whom it should be addressed. So my ticket, for example, from February 5th still hasn't been addressed because nobody knows who should actually look at the issue, which is complicated. It involves VASP, the code which we bought actually. We have a license and it has to be combined with LAMPS, which is free software, to develop machine learning potential. And how we can be competitive if my tickets are not addressed for many months? People already work on this, and our students cannot work on this and ask me all the time when this will be addressed, and it's not. And we have great expert whom I could actually send email, please do it, and they will do it very fast. But the system doesn't work because you just send ticket, and I don't know who addressed this. If they even open it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's February 5th. I can send you this ticket and please see the history. What's happening with my tickets? My tickets are not addressed at all.
Okay, so this is an operational question, a really important operational question. I think we should make sure, I think Patrick is on the line. Somebody from our operations group here can follow up with you directly, and I'll ask for an update on the timing of the resolution on that for you, okay?
Yeah,
So
I actually asked Patrick many times, but I mean, so he trying to help, but I mean, the system should be, the ticketing for support should be changed. So we should be able to put the name of a person who is expert and can actually address it, because ticket stays in a line and they don't have knowledge who has expertise. I know who has knowledge. We have great expert who can address it, but the ticket doesn't go there.
Hi, Barbara. It's Patrick here. Yeah, I'll follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Barbara, if you want to write me an email with just your observations on this, if that might be helpful as well, and Patrick and I can work together to return, get a response to you. Okay.
Perfect. Back over to you, Katerina.
Thank you. I'm now addressing a comment from a question from the chat, which says, on slide 17, I wonder whether the potential growth and the scale may be in the next 10 years of AI factories were considered during the policymaking and budgeting.
So that, I think clarification on the question here. So did we do any forecasting or thinking about future growth and demand as part of this? Is that the question? Am I right on that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the time horizon for kind of the AI factory and some of the training and the deployment of these kind of things. So yeah.
Yes, that is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah,
You
I'll
want to take a
maybe
crack at that? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, George here.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think that's the reality of the triple constraints. It's time, cost, and scale. And the reality is you can go fast, but that kind of also limits the options that prevent us from actually kind of building something longer term, especially with the $705 million funding envelope. So in order to achieve a true AI factory, there are a number of opportunities for us to deploy at scale quicker, but all of the options will take time because a lot of these facilities do not exist anywhere in the country. And even if it's located at a university with existing scale, they too will need to be retrofitted or expanded on significantly.
Yeah, I guess I'd just say that, a lot of our thinking around this is really to try to get the foundation for future growth set properly for the country. There is an existential issue though around this, a global race around capacity in this area. And, I think pretty clear to us in our work over the last several months that Canada was getting left behind in terms of its investment in this space overall. So this is this is a start, but it's the case for all of us to make with the funders and our research funders, as well as this needs to be a long-term strategy, not just in terms of investment in hardware, but that long-term investment in data management for the country and committing to workforce for the long term as well. We have 250 people that we support across the country, including Alliance, not including Alliance staff. The funding of those really top-notch people that work in data centers is very intermittent, right? Getting this kind of stuff. If you take a look at other jurisdictions, there is a long-term strategy, and the foundation is clear, and the commitment to the personnel that are at the leading edge is long-term, and this is where we need to be as a country. I think, without being overly dramatic here, it's the foundation isn't set for that yet, and this is where we need to get to, and this is part of our bigger argument with the federal government.
Absolutely.
All right, we do have a next question in the chat that is, would the international cooperation include Latin America, African, and Asian countries as well?
Yeah, I think thank you for that question, because actually that's my day job, is international relations for the organization. Absolutely, we do want to kind of take a look at where we can kind of partner with like-minded jurisdictions internationally, but we also take guidance from where the government of Canada wants to see collaboration as well. And right now, geographically positioning, there's a strong push for the European Union for obvious reasons for global trade, but also within the Indo-Pacific region. So those are two priority areas that we will start on, but look at other jurisdictions for sure as well.
Use a corny, too often used analogy these days politically around hockey, right? This is where the puck's going, right? Not where the play is right now, and you can see the the emerging economies in some of those areas as being potential very ripe ground for us to collaborate. So I certainly am very supportive of that.
I think we have a hand up from Raymond.
Hello, thank you very much for the presentation. I wrote my question in the chat, but just because I need to leave, so I'm just gonna quickly go over it. I was wondering, how would you like the Alliance go around the obsolescence of the hardware of the AI compute? Like I saw in the scenario 3, you put a lot of like initial that investment in the infrastructure and the compute. But would that be the kind of like the worst scenario, because like you want to like upgrade your hardware as the like the advancement of like HPC like go more like in the future?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at this because I think, to be clear, in scenario 3, not all of that funding is intended just for computers. In that scenario, it is also including all the building infrastructure, the power infrastructure that isn't just for the immediate needs, but also providing for scalability into the future as well. So this is a future-proofing scenario at a I would say a reasonable cost estimation, not just on the compute. So obviously with the compute, those would need to be on a refresh cycle, but we are expecting that the amortization period for the physical building infrastructure would be done in a longer term horizon, which doesn't need to be refreshed as frequently or renovated as frequently, so to say. And as I said, like this is for estimation purposes. It's not saying that the Alliance is proposing to do this or that. It's really so that ISED has a way to assess the different options that are coming forward for them and understand the different cost structures in an apples to apples way.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect.
All right. Next question from the chat. What is the governance model? That is, how should resource requests be arbitrated? For instance, like tree councils, do private sector people apply the same way?
Yeah, I think those are a lot of details that we obviously need to flesh out in a proposal phase. So I just want to remind everyone, the statement of intent is only 15 pages. So it was really ideas and a summary of where the vision is. So in general, what would need to happen is kind of really figuring out what those industry access models look like. How do we kind of provide equal access while also preserving, a substantial amount of that for primary research as a whole. But those are things that we'll definitely be coming back to this community on to kind of really figure out what it needs to look like and how we can kind of make some process improvements to make your lives easier as well.
Yeah, I would just add, Stephen, to this point, and going back another point I made, I think when we had the question around how we're going to approach the data platform here, there is a position and role for this organization support of this. There are many organizations that are in the economic development space that support SMEs and technology companies, et cetera. So again, our work here would really to be to provide tools for companies, how they get access in either through existing programs or augmented programs that are already working on the street, or we have specific access models here. These are all things that would need to be worked through, right? The big concept here is that the environment that is being contemplated here from us is really open to more than just academic research in a formal way. And there's evidence of how this works in other jurisdictions as well, right? Certain amount of capacity is assigned to that, et cetera, et cetera.
Mark, I believe you wanted to reply to the reply.
That's okay, thank you.
Okay. Just making sure that we take the time to look at the time. We're at time right now, and there is still a couple questions in the chat. So do we want to take another 2 questions and then we leave it so that we answer separately the rest?
Maybe I could summarize, because I think I kind of took a look through the chat, and I think a lot of people
Okay.
are asking about like next steps for the SOI and where that's going. So first and foremost, this is a Government of Canada process. The Alliance is really trying to coordinate and help corral and coordinate all the responses to make government's life easier, because I think there's many voices and we're all trying to swim upstream together. So what we fully anticipate is that they're going to review their processes, all the submissions. They're going to have an expert review panel to do that. And in the meantime, what we are going to do as an alliance is commit to kind of doing more of these engagements, more town halls, either in person or virtual, and more of an opportunity to kind of flesh out some of these very specific questions that you have with your community and actually kind of incorporate that as we kind of build forward into a future vision. So this is very much, as I said, a government process, but we want to make their lives easy. I think that's one of the things. The other thing really here is around industry participation, grants, and how do we kind of account for that? We're already working with industry. We're also doing a number of industry-specific engagements because we also understand that they have a very strong role to play. It's not just about getting vendor, concessions or stuff like that, We want to make sure that they are coming in and also understanding your needs so that we are actually building together, because a lot of the technology does come from private sector. And there's also a sovereignty consideration there as well. And how do we actually support Canadian industry, not just buying things from all around the world? How do we do that effectively? It's a balance and trade-off. So hopefully, we answered most of your questions. But as I said, this is the beginning of the engagement, not the end of the engagement. And you should be hearing back from the Alliance in the next few weeks, after a lot of us who've been involved with this process have been kind of really working pretty hard over the past few weeks. But we're going to take some well-deserved break, and then we're going to hit it hard for you guys as well. So thank you so much. And as I said, this will be recorded. It will be available on our website, including the presentation. We will be releasing a summary of our SOI as well as our engagement documents on our website. So please subscribe and make sure that you are following there. Thank you so much. Thank you.